History, the definitive visual guide from the dawn of civilization to the present day, or thereabouts. We found this in the public domain, public access, so no copyright infringement or breach was intentional. Features editorial consultations from Adam Hart Davis and other highly qualified professors such as Professor Brian Fagan, Dr. Karen Radner, Professor Richard Lim, Dr. Roger Collins, and so forth. You can do your own personal research on them to find out their background, etc. in your own time at your own pace. Here is the contents page, and as you can see there is quite a lot of information there. From origins, rulers and hierarchies, thinkers, believers, warriors, travellers and inventors, to Renaissance and Reformation. And much more content to follow. Forward, I'm going to have to enlarge it to see that. Just go through it briefly. The history that this particular author, Adam H. down the bottom there, he signed it. He states, the history that he learned at school was a mess of seemingly endless lists formed of dates and the names of kings and queens. As a result, he hated it and never saw the variations between the various strands of the subject. He now realizes that history is important and that we can all learn from the triumphs and mistakes of our ancestors, both utterly fascinating and hugely informative. History is a reference, this particular book is a reference book that teases out all these sparks of war, etc., etc. Very interesting. We may have to shrink it a bit so we can actually see it on the edges over here. Looks like some sort of Stonehenge type monument, ritualistic circle. 1. Origins 4.5 MYA 3000 BCE. Evidence of the earliest hominins, the ancestors of modern humans, has been found in Central and East Africa and dates back millions of years. Discoveries of early human remains reveal the remarkable ability to adapt to Earth's changing environment that has been so significant in the evolution of our species. So in relationship to our YouTube channel, the Ministry of the Real Truth, and the original ancient, very old Tab Asheret Brita, or Genesis in English, where it states through the translation of the Lishana Artica Saprea, very ancient sacred scribal language of God, the Aramaic, into the nearest English equivalent by Victor and Alexander, saying or indicating that there was pre-Adamic man before Adam and Eve. Verifies, it's verified. Okay? That it agrees with archaeology, anthropology, science, etc., all the artifacts. He does, Victor N. Alexander does say Neanderthal, but we believe, because English is his second language, maybe he used that term incorrectly, where at that point is probably the Homo erectus, hominoids, Cro-Magnon, as someone else suggested to us. Neanderthals found in the valley of Neander, Germany, centuries later, by about 1945 roughly. not by a guy called Neander, as we were led to believe, but just found at that particular valley. Okay, so again, origins 4.5 MYA, 3000 BCE. Here is a detailed timeline type map, and it reads, measured against the estimated 4.5 billion year age of Earth itself. So okay, humans, anatomically modern humans in particular, evolved remarkably recently. Modern man, Homo sapiens, appeared only about 150,000 years ago, rapidly migrating from African homelands to join other humans species Homo erectus in Asia and across Europe and the Middle East, the Neanderthals. By about 24,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, socially more sophisticated, had become the sole human species. Then in the Middle East, about 6,000 years ago, settled and increasingly complex societies emerged. With them came the first cities and the first states. It was the birth of civilization as we know it today. So if you have church leaders or religious leaders say to you, oh, man's only been around for 6,000 years, yeah, that's a load of rubbish. Here, according to the scientific evidence, etc., they've been around a lot longer. So yeah, it's very interesting pictorial timeline here between 4.5 MYA and 3000 BCE. And here it has an article on our remote ancestors. The evolution of modern humans extended back millions of years. It is not easy to trace, as our evidence comes from scattered, unrelated finds, making it difficult to form a cohesive picture. The dominance of Homo sapiens is a comparatively recent development. In the 19th century, Charles Darwin, the father of this theory of evolution, that we all came from a one ape species, all that sort of stuff. His theory of evolution by natural selection, see paragraph 340 to 41, identified tropical Africa as the cradle of humankind. Well, we would say, yeah, okay, we'll probably go with that because you have massive land mass. There's no plate shifting, seismic activity, all this sort of stuff. So it would have been one big landmass. According to the Bible, it's like, as well, one big landmass, right? Everybody was in this big, gigantic area we know as Europe, etc. So Africa could have been where Israel is, etc., etc. These people moved around. They weren't called countries yet. There's no maps, okay, at this stage. So as we do, we refer to them as geographical locations. Certain people settled in certain areas, and then they migrated. They had descendants, etc., etc., and then they migrated to different regions of that mass, that land mass, right? Okay, it wasn't until, say, centuries later or millenniums later, when the Greeks invaded, etc., or whoever had maps, drew maps, charted it all, created these maps, and gave these places names, like the Greeks with Mesopotamia, Asia, Persia, etc., etc. Notice we have to go look at the definition of the ia and ik on the end of these particular words: Mesopotamia, Syriac, Aramaic, Persia, etc., and define what that actually means. Ia is like these people were the possessors of that particular geographical location. Ik meaning that these people had a certain language, they were the possessors of that language. You know, they were asked, okay, so where did your language come from? Oh, our forefather, say for example Aram in the Bible, in Genesis, etc., in genealogy list, it came from him. Okay, so they, oh, okay, you speak the language of your forefather Aram, so we'll call it Aramaic, right? Yeah. So when they go back to Greece and people say, oh, where'd you go? Oh, we went here and we saw these people. Oh, who are they? Oh, they are these people, ancestors of Aram. Okay, what's going on there? Oh, they spoke this certain language. Okay, what was that? The language of their forefather Aram. And we put this on the end of it, this suffix, end suffix, or prefix, whatever. We believe it's the end suffix. Okay, where they possessed this particular language. They spoke this particular language in this particular geographical locations. And then later, when seismic activity happened, the plates shifted, the Earth's plates shifted, etc., etc., volcanic eruptions, separating these geographical locations. So you had like this geographical location, Africa and Canaan or Israel today, separated by Suez Canal or the seas running through it, whatever, right? Okay. Supposedly the Suez Canal had been created, or was being created in Egyptian times. But you have this great divide. Okay. So then you get other chunks breaking off, etc., etc., and they become this particular geographical location, and then later on they become this country according to a map somebody creates, yeah, and gives them this name of this particular country. That's now called a country. Okay, so you have this theory of evolution by Charles Darwin, and it says here humans are classified as primates, a group that includes apes and monkeys. So it's not saying there that we are monkeys, right? That we came from monkeys. Our closest living relatives are chimpanzees. They probably have similar features to us, like DNA, something like that, with whom we share almost 99% of our genes. That's what it's talking about there. But this tiny genetic difference is what makes us so far removed from apes. There you go. Our roots. Sahelanthropus tectensis 18, found at southern edge of the Sahara in Chad and dating to between 6 and 7 Mya, or MYA, may be the earliest human ancestor. Although very early, this skull seems more advanced in some ways than later species, and it is unclear how it fits into the evolutionary story. Other very early ancestors, about whom very little is known, include Orarin Tugensis, or some name like that, and so forth. There's a lot of information there. Okay, and there's a lot more information here about Charles Darwin, the earliest ancestors, next generation, the first humans. Ancestors of modern humans appeared about 2 MYA in eastern Africa, quickly spreading to the west. Tools dating from 1.8 Maya have been found in a dry stream bed at Kubi Fora on the shore of Lake Turkana, Kenya. According to the scriptures, it all started, civilization, etc., started in Mesopotamia, that region. Okay. So yeah, we are open to it being one giant landmass, and then later on it was called Africa when the tectonic plates shifted and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so that's pretty interesting there. Okay, these are all the different types of skulls that have been found. Pretty interesting. Some of the museum ones supposedly were proven to be fake. The art of communication. Okay, what they did was they wrote on the walls, they drew on the walls. Okay, these ancient cave dwellers, these pre-Adamic humans. There's all the information here. Language was a development. Here's the brain development. According to anthropology, archaeology, etc. All the evidence. And then you probably had oral, and then you had pictographs, Aramaic pictographs, Hebrew pictographs, and so forth. up until somebody decided, oh, we'll carve it on stone, leather, skins, scrolls, etc. And then somebody very clever came up with the Gutenberg press and said, okay, we'll put these into book format, we'll print it, all this sort of stuff, and get it out there. Very interesting information there. This is a map of today, we suppose. Again, all this information here out of Africa. Every human today is the descendant of a small group of modern humans who left Africa around 60,000 years ago to explore the planet. We can see the legacy of those journeys today in the diversity of races and cultures around the world. Okay, again, we're reminding you that it was just one giant landmass. Okay, so Africa here could have been part of this. Okay, all these seas here may not have existed yet at this particular time, according to scripture, etc. as well, the Bible. Okay, so it's one giant landmass, all this area here, you know, all of it. Yeah, so maybe if all started in Mesopotamia, Syria, in the east, okay, one giant geographical location, and then these people, descendants, they had descendants, sons and daughters, etc., who had descendants, and then they migrated. Okay, it's too cold here now, or too hot, we'll just move over this way. Okay, plenty of animals, etc., running around, plenty of vegetation, fruit, herbs, etc. Yeah, we like it here. Okay, maybe it got a bit cold later on, so they said, oh, we'll move over here, or maybe we'll move over here. Yeah, and then you had the seismic shift, the tectonic plates shifting, etc., etc. Yeah, so that's why I got these great divides, as you see here. Okay. There's an archaeologist telling you some particular item. So it's very interesting so far, and these are the different kind of housing, etc., that people in Africa, etc., have made for themselves. Looks like it's out of bones of some particular animal. Here's the different kinds of people who adapted to change. Okay, so like you have dark-skinned people, right? Who knows if Noah and his sons were white or light-skinned, right? They're bound to have some. Okay, let's go right back to Adam and Eve. They're in a garden, it's beautiful, it's probably very sunny, so they would have some sort of tan, right? Being in the sun all day. So these people had sons and daughters, descendants, etc. And then their sons, daughters, descendants decided, okay, we're going to go over there to this location or go further off, we're going to migrate. So they go that way and it's hotter. They end up in the Egyptian desert area. So it's really hot. So their skin starts to evolve. Yeah, it gets used to this high sun temperature, right, coming down on their skin. Yeah, it's one of those phenomenal things. So they get a darker hue. Yeah, they may even become black. You know, there's many who say, "Oh no, it's the black people first, and then the white people are albinos or this sort of stuff." Right? Well, you have to go do the research on that. This is just what we found. Okay. So yeah, because the Bible doesn't say, "Oh yeah, Noah and them came out of the ark, and his son was this color and his son was that color," right? It doesn't mention that. Okay, but somewhere along the way, these people became olive skin, had a darker hue, black even, Chinese, etc., etc. Okay, over the many millenniums, and then you can see the changes here, the adaptability. Okay. Eskimos probably went paler because they're in the area, Alaska, moved to Alaska, that area, right, and not much sun, so they became paler. Yeah, this man here probably a desert dweller, got a brown face, brown features, etc. He probably because the sun's beating down on him 24/7, 365. Okay, there's another person here, probably Asian of some sort, and then a European person. So they may have interbred. They may have crossed each other and interbred. Okay, so you got a Chinese person who looks like a black person, or a black person who looks Chinese. Okay, or a black person who may have like white features. He might have blue eyes, or something like that. You know, it's all adapting to change. And here's some of the tools that these hunters gatherers used. And here's the African warriors or tribesmen down here, probably looking for food, water, etc. See how dark their skin is? That's because the sun is beating down on them 24/7, 365. The silly Hollywood movies always seem to have European people in Syria, whatever, Jerusalem, whatever, as pure white. They never got any sun on them, and they stayed white. What a load of rubbish. Yeah, they would have had some sort of hue, right? Bit of a tan, etc. Would not have stayed pearly white as the gates of heaven. It's just silly. But that's Hollywood for you. But we're not saying they'll go instantly African black either. Okay, so here is footprints of the supposed pre-Adamics. Here's the tools. This is like Aboriginal hunter. Took them like supposedly 60,000 years to go from Europe and get to Australia, apparently, according to one man's research and evidence. Okay, here's hunters and gatherers, all the information about that, probably the Africans. Yeah, it looks like an African depicted there in that photo. So yeah, you may find that, you know, through your research that the Africans, well, it's kind of hot here, and we'll go further afield, chasing the animals, whatever, for whatever reasons, and they went into European area, basically flooded with cavemen, you know, colder climates, lots of fur on, all that sort of stuff, and maybe interbred with them. They're stronger, faster, whereas the pre-Adamics, these cavemen were bigger, tougher probably, but too bulky and slower, right? Yeah, and these other ones were like lighter, yeah, faster, cleverer, etc., etc. So they're probably interbred. And spirit world, ever since humans became conscious of their own frailty and mortality, they have sought the answers to the eternal mysteries of life. Theories about the purpose of our existence and questions about what happens after we die will always be a part of the human experience. And there's some ancient paintings, drawings, etc., probably on cave walls. These are remains of different prehistoric peoples. And then you have shamanism. This is all spiritual, right? The different ideas. Then it looks like the Egyptian there. All different cultures, their different ideas. And then you have here all the different societal gods and tools and extra etc. that they had. Okay, it looks like there's pictures on here. Probably some sort of cuneiform there somewhere. Maybe it's a bit further on. Yeah, they're different beliefs, they're different gods with a small g, with that sort of stuff. Yeah, first harvest, everyone in the world lived by hunting and gathering 12,000 years ago, but only 6,000 years later, virtually every human society with the ability to farm and herd animals produced its own food. They probably got, you know, sick of disappointment, chasing animals across massive land areas, ending up going home with nothing, and someone came up with a brilliant idea. Hey, look, herbs, plants, etc., etc. Why don't we just grab those, get the seeds, and you know, in our town, city, whatever it was, village, we'll just plant it. Okay, and we'll grab some of these animals, we'll catch them, okay, and then we'll breed them ourselves. So we don't have to go running, say, we're in Africa, they have to go running all the way to Asia, chasing these animals to end up getting nothing, right? Brilliant idea. So that became the norm in that era. Village life, and what is this? All the items that were found through archaeology, anthropology, etc. Some Egyptian depiction of irrigation, so revealing you how man developed all this sort of stuff over the millenniums. And pottery, and etc, etc. And here's their rites and rituals, and they make these Stonehenge like circles, monuments, all this sort of stuff, to because they're looking at this, at the heavens, right, the skies, and you go, wow, now why did that? What the hell was that thing that just went across the sky there? Oh, why did it suddenly rain? Oh, and then they start believing in these gods, etc, etc. So they created these monuments. We're having a dry season. We really need rain, gods. So we'll set it up. So yeah, we give you veneration, all that sort of stuff, and send us rain. Do a little dance in the circle, all that sort of stuff. And maybe it happened quite by coincidence. It just suddenly started raining. I thought, wow, see, it must be gods, all that sort of stuff, right? Must be something up there that we yelled out to and it gave us rain. So we believe with this sort of stuff. Okay, so here's the precious metals, probably bronze, iron, etc, etc, throughout the millenniums. There's a full skeleton of the Otzi, the Iceman, being found. Some maps here of North European plain, etc. This book is really interesting so far. And then they decided, besides creating villages, tribal villages, oh, we'll create towns, and we'll get all these people working for us, and they plant, harvest and all that sort of stuff. Big communal thing, and it thrived from there. But once you get a massive amount of people like this, okay, you need a lot of food, don't you? Water. Water is the most important. Without the water, you ain't going to have anybody there, right? They're going to leave that area. No water there. Well, we're out of here. Seek somewhere else with water, because water is a sustainer of life, isn't it? One of the sustainers. Okay, so you have rulers and hierarchies, 3700 BC. As humans began to band together in organized communities, more structured societies emerged. They began to develop greater powers of communication, create complex belief systems, and form cultured urban civilizations, particularly in the Middle East, India, Europe, China, and Central and South America. So that's because these people, maybe they had some problems with invaders or whatever, they couldn't handle it anymore, it's too hot, whatever the reason was, they decided, oh, here's a boat, here's something we can float off in, let's go find different location, and so forth. Being invaded, being abused, forced to do this and that, well, yeah, in fear for their lives, these people decide, we'll hop on this little boat and we'll sail away and we'll find somebody somewhere better, right? Yeah. Especially if they're attacked or invaded by massive hordes and there's nothing much they can do about it. So it's either fight or flee. So they chose to flee. Nobody wants to stay around and get killed, right? Nobody wants to die. So that's probably what they did. Fled to safety. Okay, here's like another timeline. Okay, here's some more information here. Different gods, different belief systems. It's like a timeline of history. That's Ashurbanipal quote. Okay, and then many diseases, sicknesses, etc. that affected people, and what is this? Different herbs, etc. that they discovered, they used to heal themselves, right? The desire to stay alive and healthy is a basic human instinct. There's no wonder then that people in early civilizations attempted to explain the origins of disease and intervened to soothe pain, encourage healing and effect cures. Some of these traditional approaches to medicine are still in use today. All naturalists, right? Natural medicines, cures and all that sort of stuff. People still believe in all that. Okay, they prefer that to the modern medicine. Okay. Probably your longevity in those days was pretty low. You're subject to diseases, sicknesses, etc. Animals on the prowl, kill you, eat you up, all this sort of stuff. Invaders from other tribes, other cities, whatever. You got everything we want, so we're going to come and invade you, take it off you. Oh, by the way, we'll make you our slaves and do all the work for us, all that sort of stuff. Continual, right? So your lifespan wasn't very long. You might have lived to 20 tops, maybe 30 if you're lucky, maybe 40, but beyond that, yeah, life was pretty hard. You had to survive with this sort of stuff as best as you could. Very interesting information if you get hold of this book and read it. Here's Cradle of Civilization, Mesopotamia. A fertile land embraced by rivers was the site of the first complex societies. By 3000 BCE, competing city-states of great wealth and sophistication were flourishing here, with advanced irrigation and agricultural schemes. Established trade, the first known writing and grand palaces and temples. So that's the first civilization. It's the cradle of all the others, right? Okay, the one that started it all off. That you got to keep in mind that civilization, if you define it properly, is like a whole lot of people in one country or geographical location at that time being civil. Yeah? They're not fighting each other, killing each other off because he has this, he has that. Okay, they're being civil. They're getting along. So the one that was the most civil would have been Egypt when the north and the south teamed up. Okay, and then they banded together and kept out constant annoying invaders like the Hittites, etc., etc. But they did do trade with the Phoenicians and others. Probably adopted a few things from them, language, art, all that sort of stuff, back and forth. But they became that true civilization. They're basically civil, weren't they? Okay, getting along with each other. They might have had their little skirmishes, but the whole thing is they didn't like every other supposed civilization, war against each other, war amongst themselves, sort of thing. They were very good like that. Okay, here's some look like war reliefs or something of Egyptian history. Probably different people coming in with goods and all this sort of stuff. They kept records of all of that and so forth. So musical instruments or something? Not too sure what that is. And then their rules and religion, it talks about that and so forth. This looks like, Mesopotamia. Maybe that's Sargon, his face covering or something like that, or something to remember him by, venerate, all this sort of stuff. Okay, here's Egypt here, the divine pharaohs. Possibly in their day, this is probably Greek, which means house of. So these were basically kings of Egypt, right? And here's a wall relief by the looks of it. This person here is very dark. These ones are lighter, kind of skinnier than the other ones, like Nubians. They're quite bulky and strong looking. Some wall reliefs that shows a rather skinny Egyptian beating on a bigger Nubian. So maybe they rose up one day, said enough of this, and overthrew all of them, and ruled from there. Maybe There's some statues, ancient statues. Mysteries of the Indus. This is Indus Valley probably. Is this to do with India? Ah, okay. Trade with Mesopotamia. Mysteries of the Indus, a fertile land of river-fed land crossing parts of modern India, Pakistan and Afghanistan gave birth to this Indus Valley culture. People in its impressive, well-planned cities lived a refined life, but unlocking more about them is tantalizing, out of reach, as the script remains mostly undeciphered. Yeah, so it's Indus Valley, early India, etc. And they did trade with Mesopotamia. They probably did trade with Egypt as well, because we looked in the Grand Bible and it showed a supposedly spacecraft, not a UFO or anything like that, picture of that particular area, the green area, the Nile, etc., and speaks of a trade route. They may have brought with them leprosy, or they may have taken it back to the Indus Valley. And it looks remarkably flat. I'm not saying that the earth is flat, but there's just this particular photo. Looking at it, it looked like it was quite flat. Yeah, the shape of the earth. A little bit of a curve, but it looked very, very flat to us. You have to go look at the Grand Bible and see that particular picture. I think it's on page 8, something like that. You can get it online at a certain website. But you probably have to be a member, sign up. It's all free. There's no cost, all that sort of stuff. No sneaky charges every week or every month. Bronze Age China. Here's a history on them. All these items here. Yeah. Very interesting. And this book then moves on to writing. This looks like some sort of early pictograph, maybe cuneiform. Have a look to see what that actually is. Okay, a box of symbols represented one transaction or sentence. The writers of proto-cuneiform group signs in boxes, not lines or columns. Yeah, this looks like a cuneiform tablet. Writing, the symbolic representation of spoken language, and its development represents a massive step forward in the intellectual evolution of humans. The development of writing occurred independently in 5 different areas: Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, China, and Meso-America. It's talking about South America, etc. Right? Okay, so there it's indicating it all started in Mesopotamia, Egypt. They probably both had a share in it, right? Like, you got the Aramaeans that probably went down there and visited them, what we found, traded with them, all that sort of stuff. And the Egyptians had their hieroglyphs. The Aramaeans had their language, and they swapped back and forth. And maybe the Aramaeans or Syriac or Mesopotamians had this cuneiform, and it was too damn hard. It was only like, really understandable and easy to write, etc., by these top elites, etc., etc. And people were thought, well, this is too much. It's too hard, all this sort of stuff. So we've got to come up with a better language, easier language. So picking up from the Egyptians, they probably say, okay, we'll develop this one, go back and develop this one. And the Egyptians probably did the same, because they're all related. Look at the scriptures, they're all related. One's a descendant of another descendant of another descendant of the son of Noah, etc., etc., right? Who all migrated and went to different areas, i.e. Egypt. Okay, here are some pictorial symbols to cuneiform. Okay, pictographs, which came before the cuneiform, and so forth. There's some evidence of different languages, the Rosetta Stone, and so forth. Looks like Phoenician there. Egyptian order and chaos. Over 100 years of uncertainty and lack of centralized control followed the collapse of old kingdom of Egypt, and it's just jumped. So our machine's a bit slow, so it just jumped. So basically there was disorder and chaos, and the Egyptians found a way to put all back into order. Over 100 years of uncertainty and lack of centralized control followed the collapse of old kingdoms, Egypt. However, order and glory were restored once again with the Great Middle Kingdom and New Kingdom eras, which were themselves separated by another period of some disorder. Okay, so the north and the south, the upper and the lower which was the upper and the upper which was the lower, decided to get together and form this civilization. Infighting. Private armies abounding during the intermediate periods, gathered by the leaders of regional factions fighting endlessly for control. This model army of the Nubian archers is from the tomb of a governor of Asut. Yeah. So at some point they made order out of the chaos. Egypt was now run more like a corporation than an extension of the royal family. Greater rights for ordinary people, including access to mummification, and more interest was taken in the poor and needy. Money was not spent not only on royal tombs, but under Pharaoh Ahmose I and the New Kingdom, around about 1550 to 1069 BCE, dynasties 18 to 20. began. This era is often seen as the time of glorious empire, with a militaristic, nationalistic outlook and new heights of wealth and power. This king's role as warrior defender of his lands gained a new emphasis. Yeah. So they were united, weren't they? They were civil in their ways. They took that disorder, that chaos, and made it into a very powerful, useful order. So basically people were treated as equals. It was like, they were considered, right? Like, so you didn't just have these kings and queens going, well, we're the king and queen, you're a peasant boot, all that sort of stuff. You're just a lowly dirt crawling peasant. They actually had some respect for them, and vice versa, by the looks of it. And here's a map of the lands, etc. Okay, here's Ramses II, and all that pertains to him. Supposedly this is his remains. He looks very African there. Yeah. They could have been interbred, right? Other people came, traded with them. Oh, I fancy that chick. She's pretty hot, Interracial marriages, all that sort of stuff. Because a lot of these statues, they look Chinese. Yeah, so they look like a dark, say Nubian or African, but they have Chinese eyes or Chinese features. So yeah, or maybe Indian even. So yeah, they may have interbred, right? Notice we said maybe. They may have. The realm of Osiris, there's all these different gods and their belief system, all this sort of stuff. And the cult of Aten, which was a massive change to what these Egyptians were believing. They had a pantheon of gods, where he decided, no, there's only one god, etc., etc. And didn't last long, and then people returned back to their pantheons, apparently. Supposedly part of the condition of the son taking over, or sitting on the throne, what we've come across. Yeah, Egyptian artifacts. Yeah, Very interesting. And what is this? Building for eternity. Maybe this is to do with the pyramids, and the mummies, with this sort of stuff. Yeah, ziggurats. Ziggurat is Persian. Yeah, it's a Persian word, etc., etc. Very interesting. Possibly, building for eternity. The buildings last forever, etc., etc. Or they're talking about the afterlife. People of the Jaguar. This might be Meso-America, South America, etc. And all their different belief system, their religions, and so forth. Looks like the Chovan Jaguar, etc. Imagery. South America, Meso-America. Europe's first civilization. The first civilization to make its mark in Western Europe was the Bronze Age culture of the Minoans, based on the Mediterranean island of Crete. In the grand palaces depict a highly sophisticated way of life and hint at a society where women played an unusually dominant role for the times. Okay, wow. So that was like a civilization that, like, women were highly respected. They played a great role. They weren't just, your lowly slave or servant or your wife. Right? They had some status there. Okay, and this book goes into more detail. Again, it's like a historical encyclopedia timeline of history. It's really, really interesting. Okay, here's the Bronze Age collapse. What's going on here? In Egypt, looks like he's hitting somebody. An invader. And trying to find out who this person actually is. He's knocking on the head. We're going to spear or whatever. Ramses III battles the sea peoples. Who were they? Pharaoh Ramses III smites his enemies in his battles against the sea peoples during the 12th century BCE. Long blamed for the Bronze Age collapse, the sea peoples may have been opportunists attacking weakened states. So it could possibly be the Phoenicians, some sort of sea people coming in, right, trying to take over. So he's fighting against him. Don't forget that the Egyptians do depict themselves as the heroes, the winners every time, etc. They do have that tendency. But here it's a battle between probably that Ramses III and this invader. Yeah. Rulers of the Iron Age. The Egyptians, well, they had bronze spears and all this sort of stuff, and these other invading armies come along with iron spears and shields and all this sort of stuff, which the Egyptians, bronze shields and that, weren't up to that standard. They were pretty useless compared to these. Maybe these guys had chariots, all this sort of stuff, and eventually the Egyptians picked up on it and used it. Looks like Assyrians. Assyrian governors often enjoyed great wealth. This mural details from a governor's residence at Tel Basip during the reign of Tiglath-Pileser III, 744 to 727 BCE. And they look they don't look Arabic, they don't look African or Asian or anything like that. They look very, would you say, Persian? You got quite a hooked nose there. Assyrians. Okay, that's what they supposedly look like in their era. Sargon too. Assyrian Empire, so aggressively built, could not withstand internal division or separation, right? They had their moments of being weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, weak, strong, right? Ashurbanipal came along and made them into a very mighty nation, defending themselves against the continual hordes of Hittites attacking them, etc., etc. And then when he died, it just basically fell apart because the enemy amassed and attacked from different angles, and their armies basically couldn't handle it anymore. Conquering sea and desert. During the second millennium BCE, a variety of peoples in coastal and desert areas fringing more populated regions established vital trading networks that linked a cross-section of cultures. So Greeks, etc., invaded, and they did trade and all this sort of stuff. Some invaded and took over those locations, ruled, whether they were tyrants and cruel and all that sort of stuff, or they got along with those people, helped them, etc., etc. That's history. You have to do your own personal research on all that. Okay, so hopefully this is very interesting to you, and you'll be interested not only in this video, and subscribe to us, adding your comments and sharing with all your friends and family, but also you go and read the book. We'll leave the link to it at the bottom of this, underneath this video. So we're going to leave it there. As we said, do go and click on the link and then go find this book. We think it's free. It's not one we have to sign up first to get it, to borrow it, and then use it for an hour, read it for an hour, then it runs out and you've got to borrow it again, all that sort of stuff. It's probably free on this particular website, we believe. So yeah, we encourage you to go and find this book and read it in your downtime. It's very, very interesting. There's also a book called The Timelines of History by Bernard Grun, 3rd edition, translated by somebody else, because so many people tried to translate it but they just died off. But somebody finally did, which is a very, very good book on the timelines of history from 5,000 years ago to early 19th century. Okay, so thank you for taking the time to watch this particular video on our channel. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know after you subscribe to our channel, and give us a thumbs up. Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to go share this video with all your family, friends and others.